Welcome to the PrimeSpan Podcast, where we talk about aging, mental health, and living well in the years that matters the most. Each week, we cut through the noise to focus on what actually helps you feel clearer, steadier, and more in control as you age. If you're navigating the second half of life or thinking ahead, you're in the right place. Let's get into it.
Welcome to PrimeSpan Podcast, where we believe that after 55, health is not just about living longer. It's about staying strong, clear, connected, and independent for the people and the future that still needs you. Today, I'm joined by Ashley Culp. Ashley is a senior vice president and partner at Sleeping Giant Media, where he has worked across music, film, television, and entertainment. His production credits include major projects such as Blade Runner. Ashley's life's work extends far beyond the entertainment industry. He is also a Yoga Alliance registered teacher, a 3-time marathon runner. I'm sure he's also going to run the next marathon, a big one. The founder of AC Beach Yoga and a fellow member of Alzheimer's Association, California Southland Chapter Board of Directors. Through AC Beach Yoga, Ashley has created a community around a message that I believe many people need to hear. Yoga can be for people who think yoga isn't for them. His work brings together movement, strength, mobility, breath, gratitude, community, creativity, and service. So today, we're going to talk about what Ashley has learned from working in the entertainment industry, why he began practicing and teaching yoga, how women support healthy aging, and so much more. But most importantly, we are going to explore why health does not require perfection. It requires practice. We are willing to continue. Ashley, welcome to PrimeSpan Podcast.
Thank you so much, Adam. I appreciate it. Thank you for that introduction. Very kind.
Love you for being here. And of course, we have Ray, who's always here as my co-pilot. Ashley, people may know you as an entertainment executive, producer. I know you a lot as a yoga teacher. I follow your page, a marathon runner, an Alzheimer's advocate. But I'm curious, when you put all of those roles aside, how do you describe yourself?
That's a great question. Honestly, everything started with me at a really young age. And I think it's a bit of the genesis of all the things that you meant to mention is music. I was hit with the bug of music probably at the age of 3 years old, as far as back as I can remember. In fact, the Jackson 5 was my first intro into music. And I can say I literally was learning how to read by reading their album cover and their album notes and then learning about them and about the music and the songs. And so music from the beginning has just been a driving force. And honestly, I think so many of the things that I'm involved with now really are just an expression of that core passion that I had. And so it doesn't, all those things that I've been doing and things that I continue to do, they always have a musical element to it. And so it's just really amazing. And that's what I love. And even still to this day, new music. I took piano lessons as a kid, making music. I DJ'd in high school and college. So it's just something, if there's one common thread, music is the thing. And so the beautiful thing about music is that it touches so many different aspects of life. And so when I got involved in some of these things, it's just a natural fit.
As you're explaining it, I look at that music as the one probably of the biggest factor that shaped the person you are today. Would that be accurate?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And the way our life works, in my mind, I was going to be a musician, and so many life choices I made along the way. In fact, even going to college, I grew up in the Midwest in Wisconsin, but when I had to make a decision of where I wanted to go to college, I was a huge Prince fan. Prince is my primary music focus and inspiration, and I learned a lot from his music. And so as a teenager thinking about college, there were all these different places, and oh, you should study engineering or all these different things. And I was like, I got to get to Minneapolis because maybe there's a chance I can be in one of the bands and I could be a keyboard player. So I decided to go to University of Minnesota. So everybody was happy. The parents are happy because you're going to college, but I'm really happy because I'm like, hey, my music career is going to jump off in Minneapolis. Purple Rain, baby.
Yeah, I was gonna say, as you're talking about Prince, pain immediately.
Exactly. That's what I was like. That's what I was going for. I was like, maybe I can be in the Purple Rain stage and all the things that they were doing. But yes, so many things in my life have been driven by passion in music and exploring those directions. And of course, it never looks the way that you planned it, but then sometimes it looks even better than you could ever imagined.
Aside from music, were you interested in anything before you started your professional career?
Yes. So music was a huge thing, but also sports. So I was very involved with sports. That was my other, if I had one of those books that where you say what you're going to be when you're a kid, it was a musician, and then it was also an athlete. And actually I had mapped out that I was going to play basketball in high school, and then I was going to be so good that I was going to be on the Olympic team twice. I had written this all out. So I used to work really hard at basketball and football and played since I was a young kid. My dad was also an athlete, and I went in his footsteps and always loved sports and all different types of athletics. And so that's something that still remains with me as well.
As you're saying that, I can imagine that the being that movement and wellness is actually reflecting to what you're trying to accomplish right now.
Absolutely.
Where did that come from? How did that start as a passion as well? What inspired you to be very actively looking at the wellness and movement perspective?
Sure. It's interesting. It's an interesting path. I was in sports probably since I was 8 years old. So that meant every year, every season, I was practicing and playing sports and whatever, and even through junior high and high school. So I was always on a regimen of training in some way, shape, or form. And I was very serious about it. I wanted to be really good and be very accomplished. But I, like a lot of people, I think, is I decided not to play in college. A lot of people decided I wasn't going to play in college. It wasn't just me, but I wanted to play at a big university, and that didn't work out. But what I find out is, and I think it's common among a lot of my friends and people I know, is you spend so much time training and everything in this kind of disciplined approach through your younger years. And then as you become an adult, sometimes you let all of that go. And because you don't have a structured system set up, you just start living adult life and doing your thing, and you go out with your friends and you're kind of, I had that season of my life where I was doing all the sports stuff. And then, but what happens at a certain point, the aging thing kicks in. I think I had realized that in my 30s. I was like, wait a minute, I got to get it together a little bit, at least a little bit better than what I was doing. But I noticed that quite a bit. And so the other thing that happens too is, man, when we were younger playing all those sports, you could eat whatever you wanted to eat and everything was going to be fine. So you could go, whatever, throw whatever spicy, throw whatever at any moment and any time, day or night, and it was no problem. And so it doesn't take long. You get in after college, you get in your late 20s and into your 30s, and it doesn't work like that anymore. And I think I was fortunate enough. I had a couple things that came up that made me really look at what I was doing. Plus, my mom was always she was ahead of the curve. Even when I was a young kid, we were eating low cholesterol. She was on a low cholesterol diet. She was all about vitamins. So I used to go with her to the vitamin store and all the different things that she was doing. So I learned that at a very early age. I wasn't necessarily following everything that she did, but obviously the influence was there. So I think a combination of those things. And my mom, She's amazing. My mother is amazing. She loved to walk. She loved being active and doing things. She exercise classes, but man, she would walk like nobody's business. She came to visit me out here in California, and she could walk for days. And I was like, Mom, where'd you go today? I went to the beach, and then I went to Whole Foods, and then I came back around. I was like, how many miles? And she was like in her 70s and 80s. It was just like, and so anyway, I think her influence is there and remains there, and just following in her footsteps in the world of being healthy.
Yeah, what a cool legacy to
Yes.
have that from your mom.
Fantastic.
Oh, I'm as I'm thinking about your story, and by the way, I didn't know all of this. I'm discovering a deeper side of you. I've known you for a couple of years now, and this is very fun to me. What have you learned about yourself as you're talking about different angles of life, and sounds like you were allowing your identity to grow beyond a certain profession. I'm curious, what have you learned about that ability? Because you had a feeling what you really wanted to do, and you really followed it. Look at where you are right now. What did you learn from allowing yourself follow and grow out of that certain professions? Because you're larger than what you intended it to be. So I'm curious, how do you do that?
That's amazing. Yeah, it's definitely amazing blessings. And for sure, I think it's one thing that was emphasized when I worked at Viacom. I was working with the cable networks over there. And so that was VH1, BET, Comedy Central, Spike. And so that was really an interesting it was the heyday of those channels. MTV was a part of that, Nickelodeon. And so the culture there was really interesting. And I remember one of the senior executives, like the CEO of the company, that was a cool place to work. You wanted to work there. But one of the things that they would emphasize was, hey, we want you to bring all of you to work, bring your total self to work. So in other words, not just the work that you're doing, but who you are as a person, bring that to work too. So it was encouraged. Wow. And I think the reason why is because they knew that their target audience was youth culture. And so in order for them to understand better how to serve their customers, they were like, hey, we have people who work for us who are those people out there. And if we learn more about them, and if they identify certain passion points or things that are going on outside in the culture, they can bring that in to us so we can also reflect that back to our viewers and everything. And so I always remember that, the idea of bringing your entire self to work, in the sense of you don't have to mute certain things just because they don't directly relate to what the job that you're doing right now. And so I think that I remember that always, and I learned that, and I encourage that too of the people that work on our teams and the teams that I have. It's just, hey, tell me about what you're doing. What other things are you interested in? Don't have to worry about, hey, I better keep that silent. I don't want to tell people at work that I have this passion in XYZ. And to me, I think it's very important to understand that. And plus, hey, people are people. That's who they really are. And so enabling them and really encouraging them to be everything that they want to be, I think, is a part of our role as leaders too. So I learned that part. I don't know if that exactly answers your question, but that was a key learning for me.
I think we need to revive their handbook, Ashley.
Yes, exactly. I agree. I really agree. It's the idea of, and so music television, and we don't need to go all through history. So some of us, our 55 plus Gen X audience, probably remembers music television near to our hearts and growing up in our younger days. But I really do think it was a special moment in time where obviously you had music already was a huge passion point, but I think music television provided a national platform where no matter where you lived in the country, we were having a common experience through music videos, through television. And so I think it was just a really special time. And I appreciate that. And I know a lot of us reminisce about those days. And now it's great. You can see all music videos on YouTube, but there was something special about having those moments, whether it was on BET, there's a show called 106 in Park, and they had TRL on MTV, and just like the excitement around that. And it was just like a national thing that everybody was, no matter if you lived in the smallest town or you lived in the biggest town, we had this shared experience around something so passionate, so passionate. And I just think it was a special time. But hey, look, there's a time and a place for everything, and everything has its moment.
But I agree with you about that special time of music television. I remember that every time that a new music was coming out, I would wait for that video to come back again, and I will try to replay it and replay it. There's
Exactly.
something so beautiful about that experience.
Right. Yeah. It's really, and so influential. And it was great. And I think, like I said, I think it was cultural in the sense of what it was providing to the audience. But I also think the people that worked there, because it was a bit of an upstart, no one saw it coming. It was a bit of an upstart thing that grew. And the idea of, hey, it's a corporate culture, but it's not a corporate culture as you would expect. And so I thought it was really something pretty cool. Again, the power of music. I go back to the power of music, and it's just, and you can go through the stages and different things that came up and how much they influenced our lives. And so I do, not to go off on another tangent, but it's like even throughout my whole career, I've worked and done a lot with music in the music industry. But for me, what's an important aspect of what I'm doing with yoga is I like to pair it with music. And so I have playlists when I practice yoga and when I teach, and then I'm also creating special playlists with the classes that I have. And so it becomes an important, and a lot of times it becomes thematic. I might use the music as a thematic crux of the whole class. So yeah, again, music so powerful.
It is. And I'd love to, we're going to explore about that more. Ray, make sure you ask questions. If we can get off on tangents here, as you're noticing already. So if you have something, I'd like to make sure to check in with you.
No, thank you. I'm really listening in, and I'm getting to know Ashley. I was just reflecting on my experience with MTV. I'm still part of the MTV phase, and I agree, the nostalgia of being able to watch the music video and to know that was like the only time, and you have to wait for it to come back around. And music brings people together. There's so many angles we could go. Thank you for sharing about music and yoga. I know we're probably going to get into that more, and I'm excited to learn.
Ashley, you've built a huge career in the entertainment and worked in major film, television. You've talked about the television and music projects. Audience usually see the finished production, as when you're talking about these things earlier, but they rarely see the pressure and uncertainty, the collaboration and the work, and sometimes years behind a finished product. I'm curious, especially being in that industry, and it also has evolved too. What has that world taught you so far?
Yes, I think the entertainment industry is so great. As I mentioned, music was something that from an early age I was always interested in. And the funny part is I started my professional career out of business school working in marketing for Philips Milk and Magnesia and neosynephrine. And so if you wanted to introduce the least sexy at a dinner party or whatever, what do you do? I said, I'm Philips Milk and Magnesia to keep people regular. It was just like, so I wasn't always in the entertainment industry. But I learned a lot. And my point with that is what ended up happening was when I went into the music industry, the reason why they were looking for me as opposed to someone who had quote unquote grown up in the music industry is that they wanted a perspective of someone who came from brand product marketing and then come to bring that type of perspective and expertise into music. And so that's one of the first things I learned is, hey, don't be discouraged if the first job you get or the first thing that you get isn't exactly what you want to do. You could be being prepped for the perfect opportunity that fits you, who you are as a person. So that's one of the lessons that I always think about. And even I share that with a lot of young people too, because you can get discouraged when that first job isn't the dream job. But ultimately, once I got into the dream job world, I was so excited that anything that came with it, I totally embraced. But one thing I realized is, and I think we all know now, anytime you're producing something, you're creating something and producing something and curating something that's going to be shared with an audience, it's a lot more work than you think it's going to be. It's great. Oh, I got this great song that I can play, but to really put it together, and the same holds true for a song as it does for a production, a television show, a film. So I always like to say, I know people and I talk to young people and they're like, I want to be a composer. I want to be a film composer. And so now as I've gotten older, I'm like, what that means is if you're a film composer, that means you're not going to get a lot of sleep at night. That's the equivalent of that, because it takes the craftsmanship, the hours, and the collaboration. It takes so much time, and it's an amazing thing. It's an amazing process. But when you think of so many different collaborators that you're working with, and even like a role as a executive music producer and music supervision, and a lot of times people have this image, it's like, oh man, this person, he or she decides what songs get into the show. And if you knew all of the stakeholders who have, it's massaging that and the back and forth, and then you have the creative vision of the director, the creative direction of the producers and what they think, and sometimes even the actors and actresses. And so everybody has a certain kind of vision, so you're really collaborating through all of that. And so it takes time. And also sometimes you might have a strong point of view and perspective. Oh, this would be perfect. This would be perfect. And you try to present and advocate for your position, but sometimes your vision isn't the one that's going to prevail. So it's really a lot of collaboration and working together with people. And I think that becomes the challenge. And I think the better you are at collaborating with creative people, those are the people who rise to the top. Certain people I have amazing respect for, and how great they are in their work as producers, because they can work with creative people who also have big egos, but they're able to work with them in such a way that is really amazing.
It sounds like there's a lot of intricacies, teamwork.
Yes.
A lot of, you have to be selfless in some way. You have to let down your ego. As you're talking about this, all of these things are coming into my mind as you're sharing what's going on.
Absolutely. And there's sometimes you say, boy, it's a wonder this thing all comes together, but they do. And so for me, I always had this passion around music and television. And I mentioned that with MTV, and ultimately was fortunate enough to work there. But even before then, like I said, part of my Michael Jackson 5 thing was seeing them on television, on the really old shows, whether it's the Ed Sullivan or Soul Train or all those shows. That's where those artists really came to life. So it was amazing when you heard them on the radio. That was exciting. But like you said earlier, when you see the visual and the music, you experience it all together, it can be really special when it hits. And so I think about those moments. One of those moments was Michael Jackson and Motown 25, when he first performed Billie Jean. And when he performed that in front of all those people, and so many people were watching it, because it was such a huge celebration, that it really broke open the Thriller album. And then it makes me think, there are those special moments where sound and vision, music and visual come together in such a way that just unlocks something powerful. And so that's basically part of my whole thing. Not every project you're going to get the opportunity to do it in that type of way, but that the pursuit of a magical moment of music and visual together is just, it's like an ongoing, lifelong pursuit. And so that's the challenge. It doesn't come easy, but man, when it does, and everybody recognizes it and it resonates across the world, as you mentioned, it can just resonate across the world. And to me, that's so exciting.
And as you're saying this, it's almost like a shared vision from everyone. And so that's the binding force that allows them to let down your ego, let down your wants, let down your likes. It's about the end result that we're all trying to achieve. It's that magical moment, as you said.
Yes, yes, yeah, it is. And so that's just the ongoing pursuit, just like you mentioned, perfection, the idea of going for perfection, and you're going for a certain level of excellence, but it's a constant pursuit. It's almost like you never exactly get there, but it becomes just a lifelong pursuit.
Yeah. Has your definition of professional success changed over time since you've been doing this for quite some time? Has it changed over time so far?
Yes, for sure. Definitely with age, always time is an amazing perspective. It
Mhm.
gives you an amazing perspective. Time does. So, what you thought was so important at one stage in your life, at a different stage, it doesn't mean the same. And so, yes, definitely it has shifted. And I think there's a new definition, and there's the way music right now is being consumed, and the way people are listening to music and finding out, discovering music is so different from when I was cutting my teeth in music industry, that it's a whole new world. It's a whole new world. And I continue to try to learn that, but it's when I was working on big projects with, say, Motown, and working on projects with, I ended up working on a project with Prince and Smokey Robinson and some of these artists. At that point, it was selling records, it was selling physical products. And so the whole campaign was built around how you can sell those physical products. And now that's not the main way people are consuming music. And so it's a totally different world, but it's
Mhm.
exciting. It's an exciting world. And I feel that more people get the opportunity to get their music heard from other. And so
Mhm.
that's exciting too.
It's evolved in that direction where there's almost a lot of opportunity be given to many people.
Absolutely. Yeah. One thing too, as I've aged and now at this stage, I have made, I think, more of an effort to take care of my physical self. As I mentioned, there's a culture in music, recording, music production, music artists of no sleep, on the
Mhm.
road, late nights, early morning, throwing back the beers and then there's also the culture of staying awake in the studio. We didn't finish for 24 hours, and we almost as a badge of honor.
Mhm.
I think at this point in my life, I realized that had a moment, and I was doing that at a certain point. But man, that is not a sustainable way of living. And so we're going to have to be able to create and do amazing things, but not under those conditions. And so that, I think that's a main challenge. But it's great to see a lot of new artists and younger artists where they do take up the idea of wellness and the idea of taking care of yourself and being more mindful of those things. But yeah, that I think is a huge shift from the way things used to be and the way that I look at things now.
Since you're talking about wellness, and you are a three-time marathon runner, and as I know, you're preparing for the New York Marathon. Am I correct?
Yes,
Yes.
yes,
Right.
absolutely. Yeah.
And you're, of course, a registered yoga teacher, and those two are very different form of movement, but both require patience and discipline and willingness to stay with the discomfort, especially marathons.
Yeah. Yes, for sure. Definitely.
How did you talk a little bit about how the movement became important to your life, but can you tell a story a little bit about what came first for you? Was it, I don't know this, was it running or yoga, and what initially motivated you to become one?
Right. So again, as I mentioned, I tried to stay in shape through my 30s, 40s, and running was a way that I did that. I did not necessarily extremely consistently, but I would run from time to time, but I had never any intention of any type of long distance running or anything like that. And so that was always there. What happened in my kind of fitness journey is I was actually, there was a point in my life where I was lifting weights quite a bit. And I got to the point where I had this horrible tendonitis in my elbow, so much so that I couldn't even pick a pin up, and it was really hurting. I was like, oh man, but I was so bummed out because I was into lifting weights. And I went to a chiropractor, and she said, look, you're going to have to give up weightlifting. And I was like, oh man, or at least for a while. And I was so bummed out. And she said, have you ever tried yoga? And I said, no, I haven't tried yoga. She said, give it a shot. And so I went to a yoga class, and I felt like I completely embarrassed myself because all of the things that the instructor was doing. And I was just like, what is going on? And I essentially went up to her and apologized after the class. I thought I was so horrible and I made a mess. And so she said, no, please tell me you won't quit and that you'll come back again. And so she encouraged me in such a way that I continued to go. And then fast forward, I just kept with yoga all those years. And so I just really liked, I was able to continue my fitness. I was able to build strength, I felt, with yoga. And also there were so many life lessons that came out of yoga. So yoga just really resonated with me. And so I was always practicing yoga. But in terms of the running, the pandemic, right? Everybody there's probably a moment in the pandemic where something happened. For me, I was like taking my mom's advice. I was going for a walk every day during the pandemic, countering all the other things that were a part of it, the anxiety and being cooped up or whatever. And so the funny thing is, walking led to jogging longer distance. And one day I walked and jogged, and I looked and it was like 7 miles. I was like, how is that even possible? And so then I was like, maybe I should run the marathon. And I don't know, don't ask me how I went from 7-mile walk run to saying I should run a marathon. I can't explain that leap, but maybe that's my mindset or whatever. And I was like, yeah. And the LA Marathon was coming up. My mom had recently been diagnosed with dementia. And so it was like an opportunity to put two things together. So I could run the marathon for the Alzheimer's Association in support of my mom. So that's really what drove the marathon thing. So I finished the LA Marathon. And so the training was so cool, and I really enjoyed the whole process that once I finished the marathon, I was like, what's next? What can I do? And I saw an ad for a yoga teacher training online. And I was like, wow, I never imagined. I practiced yoga for all these years, but I never imagined being an instructor. What if I did that? And what if I could help other people understand the benefits of yoga? So that's where that came from. And then I started teaching. And because it was the pandemic, we were supposed to start teaching to practice teach in studios. During the pandemic, everything was closed. And so I didn't know how I was going to actually do my practice teaching. And then I was like, what if I did it on the beach? Everybody would love to come to the beach and no mask. You don't have to worry about this and that and the breath and all this stuff. And so I started doing it on the beach. And then after the pandemic, I was like, I love being outside, being near the ocean, and all the negative ions you're breathing the fresh air, and people can put their mats out with enough space where they're not cramped up. So it really just turned into one of those things where I just prefer to be practicing out on the beach. So that's how that all came to pass.
You're really follow your passion, Ashley, which is amazing in this discovery.
Yeah.
Message behind AC Beach Yoga, or Ashley Culp Beach Yoga, is yoga for people who think yoga isn't for them. That is powerful. As I'm thinking about, especially during the pandemic.
Yes.
Because many people, as I experience it too, exclude themselves from doing something before they even begin because they put something in their mind. Yeah. When you created that message, who were you thinking it for, or how did you come up with that messaging?
It's funny, when I first finished the yoga teacher training and I sat down with some friends, I had this idea. And actually, the instructor, the teacher, Brian Kest, has a Power Yoga is his platform, and he's been teaching yoga for a long time. And I learned from some of his students. And so when I did the yoga teacher training and we were on video, and I was completing one of my classes that I submitted into him, he was like, I see what you can do. You could take some of these big strapping guys and be their yoga instructor. He said it in a funny kind of way. And so my initial idea was big man yoga, that it was very much targeted to the guys. And it was one of those things, the targeting those guys who had a great sports background, probably in their youth, now not quite as mobile as they used to be and can't find a way to exercise without risk of injury. So big man yoga was my original idea. But once I started going out on the beach and I saw all kinds of people wanted to come. It wasn't just the guys, it was women, but it was some women who never practiced before. It was some people who were older. And so then it's just the idea of it, I just broadened that concept beyond just big man yoga to people who don't think yoga is for them. And it's really, my thing is just wanting to encourage people, hey, give this a shot. And by the way, I was not lost on me. I don't look like most yoga instructors. And so, which on the one hand is, no one would expect you to be a yoga instructor, but that's part of the surprise element of it. When you don't think it's for you, it can be for you. And it doesn't have to look any particular type of way. And the benefits are so huge and it can make such a big impact on your well-being. Hey, come with me. I know you probably are thinking it's not the right thing or you're not comfortable in the space. Let me come along with me and I'll show you a way for you to come in, encourage you. Don't hurt yourself. Let's just come in and let me guide you and find your way in this world of yoga.
You're talking about big man yoga. That would have been a different branding experience.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. It's so funny. And I've learned through my years in marketing, it's so interesting. Things, you have to live with them for a little bit and feel it out. But I realized that I wanted to reach a broader audience than that. And then also, I like the idea of all ages. And I think some people, the good thing is I've had people in part of my yoga class who've been practicing yoga for a long time and they're in their prime of life. They're a little bit older, but they've been practicing for a long time. But I also wanted to make it to where if you've never practiced before, that you would give it a shot as well, and that you can be introduced to something like this. And so that's really what it's all about. And the idea is just sharing what I've learned, right? Mm-hmm. Because as an instructor, no, I didn't invent anything. This is thousands of years of knowledge and everything. And I'm just trying to share what I've learned with people and hopefully be encouraging to them and to help them to live that healthy lifestyle, for them to be able to unlock certain things, for them to be able to just walk without a limp, or your back, any movement you make, your back is hurting, and all these things. If I can be helpful in guiding people to avoid those kinds of things and live a fuller life, then I'm winning.
I have one question as a follow-up for that, and I'm going to make sure Ray gets a question here.
Okay.
Our audience, most likely they cross over with the 55 and up. But what would you say to someone who feels they're too old and stiff and heavy, inexperienced and self-conscious for them to attend your class?
My thing is, first of all, accessible. It's like, this is built to be accessible. It's not built to be any type of competition or a pose off, who can do the pose, whatever. The idea is, hey, come as you are and let's do what we can do. I can't do X, I can't do Y, I can't do this. Okay, let's focus on what you can do. Let's start there. And so that's how I approach it with people. And sometimes it's intimidating because everybody has a perception in their mind of what yoga is and what it looks like. And one thing I've learned also through marathon running is when you go to the race before the race starts, and you're there in LA, it starts at Dodger Stadium. And I think a lot of people have expectation in their mind about what a marathon runner looks like. If I can tell you, when you're up there at Dodger Stadium at whatever, 6:30 in the morning, and you look, there's every shape, size, age. I met this couple, I think he was 80 and he had run something like 100 marathons throughout his whole life. And his wife had also run multiple marathons. And they're like, every year we make this. And so I also would give those type of examples. There are people, and we've seen on Instagram, I know I've seen on Instagram where there's 100-year-old yogis, and age isn't the barrier to it. And there's ways to do it. And if you come along and learn and just take a moment and focus on what you can do and start with where you are, and then we'll just grow from there.
I love it. That's a beautiful message. Ray, I'm sure you're brewing some questions as I can see you digesting and writing your questions.
Yeah, no, I've learned that I have to write down some notes because there's so much rich experience you're sharing, and it all kind of builds up into my one question. But you have such a positive mindset that you have, as you shared from a young age, that you set a goal to something, and even if your path kind of steered off, you still had such a positive mindset on getting something done and being part of a larger picture, giving more of yourself. How do you stay in that mindset? Because not everyone has this way of thinking and setting a goal and doing something, and just randomly you did yoga certification, and what a great, unique background. Nothing holds you back. How do you stay in this mindset and encourage others, like your members that are with you and people around you?
Attribute a lot of that to my mom and my dad as well, as far as you can do anything that you want to do, and encouraging me to pursue some of these things that off the beginning would be like, what Ashley's doing, what, those kinds of things, and encouraging me to be confident enough to do that. I think I'm a big believer in momentum, and like, how can you build momentum? So look at the marathon example of completing the marathon. And then I felt like the momentum of the marathon led me to yoga instruction. And I'm a believer in that, is that if you just can get something rolling and then build off of that momentum. And I think that helps to fuel a positive mindset. And I try to think about things like even starting your day or working, what can you do at the beginning to build some momentum? So, or when you feel stuck. So many times you get stuck on something and, oh my gosh, I can't get past this moment. And I definitely have those moments. And so that's one tool that I try to do. It's like, where can I build some momentum? Where can I build one positive step? And then I feel as though that's something that you can, the momentum of that can carry you to the next step. And I don't know, as I just have always been a believer in that, and just look for that along the way. There's definitely challenges that come up all the time, every single day, even AC Beach Yoga challenges. But I really think momentum is a key. And once you get started, and I think a lot of people feel that way too, is sometimes even with the people that as a yoga instructor, oh yeah, I was really big into yoga back in whatever, 20 years ago, but I just fallen off and I need to get back on it, but I just can't do it, that kind of a thing. And it's just if the momentum was there, you had it, you got it in you. So I try to be encouraging, just, hey, give it one step. You don't have to do a marathon. When people ask me, I was like, man, wow, what about it? I said, you know what? It started with walking. If you can walk. So before you want to run a marathon, just walk. Start there. If you can walk, you can eventually build if that's where you want to go to.
Thank you so much for sharing that. I really love what you said about momentum, because that is exactly how we see and encourage our members at PrimeSpan too. It really starts with one small action. And I think the idea of the marathon is really a great example of this, because I think people are expecting to, if it's comparing their health to a marathon, it is a journey. It takes time to get there. And it really starts with one small step, which is how our program works as well, that we want to encourage people to just start somewhere. It doesn't have to be a big thing. It could just be a 10-minute walk. And eventually down the line, it'll be a marathon. But maintaining consistency and building that momentum is the hardest part. And you need a support system around you. Maintaining that momentum. I love that word. That's going to be my word.
I have to keep it in my mind too. Even sometimes I'm not even necessarily articulating articulating is like, where can you get a win? Where can you start with something to break out of whatever you're stuck in? And one thing I will add that I want to say has been a significant part of my journey, because injuries are going to come up. So first of all, no matter what you do, and guess what? Injuries come up if you do nothing. That's what I realized too. Like if you do nothing and then you get up out of bed the wrong way, there's going to be injuries. And so one thing that's been so instrumental for me, I will have to say, is physical therapy. I've dealt with sciatic nerve pain, back issues, discs, bulging discs, so much so where I couldn't necessarily walk. I couldn't exercise for a number of years. So all of that happens in the backdrop of all the great stories I'm telling you. Along the way, there were terrible injuries and pain and things where I felt like, oh man, am I ever going to be able to move the same way again, and those types of things. And so physical therapy. Now, some people, when they hear that word physical therapy, they're, oh my gosh, I don't want to do that, or oh, that never works. And so you may have had negative experience with it, but I can tell you physical therapy is a significant part of my journey. And so through those difficult times, the discouraging times of injury and feeling like, oh, I'm not going to be able to do this anymore, the encouragement and the training of a physical therapist, being under the direction of someone who's really good and who really understands what you're going through, I can't even put a price tag on that. So honestly, it's like what I've grown to, where when it comes to health, you have a team. You almost have to think about it as having your own team, your doctor, your physical therapist, whatever coaches you have. I have a running coach and then your yoga teacher. So lean into those experts, into those fields. And if you kind of look at it, one way people look at it is, I have to do physical therapy. But the other way to look at it is like, man, I'm getting another very knowledgeable team member, and that can really help me. And so that I can't speak highly enough of my physical therapist. I can tell you in fact, my physical therapist right now is a runner, and she was the one who recommended me running the New York Marathon. She's from New York, and she said that's the best one. And so anyway, she's on my team, I feel. And so whenever something comes up, a different injury, I can reach out to her and we talk through things, and it's an amazing resource.
Ashley, as you're talking about this, it's so much aligned to what we do at PrimeSpan, because we always talk about the importance of maintaining strength. As Alison was talking about, we focus on mobility, balance, independence as we age. And you talked about, as you've aged and become wiser, how has your understanding of physical health changed as you have gotten older, and what does strength mean to you today? I'm curious your perspective in this area.
Absolutely. As I mentioned, weightlifting, right? Earlier, I was lifting weights, and that's the whole thing is pump it up, you want to get nice and strong and everything. And so that injury in weightlifting actually was one of the big revelations for me, is once I couldn't lift weights during that time period, and I started doing yoga. And when I practiced yoga, I remember telling the therapist after, my original chiropractor who had recommended yoga, I remember explaining it to her. It's like, I don't know, it's like a different feeling. I feel like I'm building up strength from the inside out. Somehow yoga, the practice of yoga, was giving me that feeling where, I don't know, for whatever reason, when it came to weights, I felt like I was putting on something on the outside, whereas yoga felt like I was building up strength, but building it from the inside and from a solid foundation. And so I just remember that. So my definition of strength is that's a lot of it is, wow, building up a certain kind of strength. And from a physical standpoint, I guess a lot of that is body weight exercise is really what we're talking about, and movements, and just using our natural body weight to exercise and to strengthen. And so you can actually do that. You don't need a ton of weights in order to build strength. And so that unlocked that kind of revelation for me. And that still remains for me now. I do strength training now, sometimes with weights. Physical therapy has helped me to learn a lot of body weight exercises. I use bands quite a bit. And yeah, and then leaning into my team members to recommend certain exercises. My running teacher just gave me a whole new video of running exercises that I'm starting now in preparation. Some things are do it barefoot, do these toe raises barefoot, do these different exercises barefoot, those types of things. It's not about necessarily how heavy or how much weight is on, but just really understanding your body, understanding how all the different ways you can build strength, building strength in your tendons, building strength in your ligaments. All these different things go beyond the bodybuilder, just look at these muscles kind of a thing.
When you're talking about that, it almost gives me a picture of just that being aware about your body, that body awareness.
Yes.
And as people are aging, just for our listeners' perspective, because there are listeners that may not be who's never done yoga or who's lost awareness in their body. What's the importance of that for preventing injury, Ashley?
Wow. Yeah. Like I said, sometimes it's like when you don't have the ability to be mobile and move, and I've seen it in family members, I've seen it in my dad, different family members, is the lack of movement, the injury that comes with that, and the pain that comes with that. And it's like the thing about the yoga and some physical therapy, these things, sometimes you're doing some things and you don't even realize that they're actually preventative. You're actually preventing things, but you're not even aware of it, right? So I like to emphasize that aspect is, man, if you let the muscles and the tendons, everything, your joints, if there's not a lot of movement happening, man, you put yourself in a really difficult spot and a really vulnerable spot for any type of movement can create some type of injury. One thing I always like to mention is, and I say sometimes in my classes and videos, is, we make sure when we leave the house to use lotion and moisturizer, because if you don't, your face or your body won't be presentable. It'll be, and then I say, what about the inside of your body? What if you don't have some type of lotion happening on inside? If you think the outside looks bad, imagine what inside looks like. And so that's one of my sayings, motion is lotion. So motion, what you're doing is you're lubricating your joints and your ligaments and and that's that lubrication, that suppleness is what gives you the ability to move and to not make one sudden move and all of a sudden everything snaps. And so, yeah, to me, that's very important. And that's what I try to talk about it from the sense of, oh, can I do a yoga class? And I say, okay, maybe if yoga isn't for you, motion is lotion, some type of movement. Let's start there. Let's start at some type of movement. Let's start at some type of breath. Let's start at some type of, just get things moving inside. So you get your inner lotion going as much as your outer lotion.
I really love that. Motion is lotion. Yeah. I just want to make a comment. It's hitting on how we view independence, that people need to be able to move to remain as independent as possible for as long as they can.
Yes, for sure. For sure. I remember a good friend of mine, her mother, this was years ago, and I think she was like in her 80s, 85 or something like that. And I was just so amazed. And because she was like, oh, she does this, she does it, she does all these different things. She was serving all these different areas. And I remember asking her, I was like, I can't believe you can do all these things at your age. And her answer was, yeah, I realize if I sit down for too long, I may not be able to ever get back up. So her theory was stay moving and you won't be shut down. And so this was years and years ago, and it's always stuck in my mind. She was like, no, if I sit down too long, I'll get sedentary and I won't keep moving. So that's why no matter what age, I'm going to keep moving.
Ashley, you mentioned a little bit earlier work.
Yeah.
And I'm curious about why is breath such an important part of movement? And then I also like to hear your opinion about that. How do rest and recovery fit into a sustainable movement practice? Because I'll use myself example. I practice yoga as my active recovery when I'm doing heavy hit training.
Yes.
So when I'm doing active recovery, I go to yoga class. And so, but I view that as an part of my recovery. And to your point, it's like it's lubricating my joints and everything.
Yeah.
I'm curious about your opinion about the breath, and then also how do rest and recovery fit into a sustainable movement practice, especially as we're getting older.
Definitely. Definitely. Yeah. So breath. So pranayama is the breath practice known as breath practice, which is a significant part. One of the 8 limbs of yoga is pranayama. And so it's breath control, breath work. And for me, looking at it from a yoga perspective, it's a significant part of what yoga is, right? And you think about how important prana, it also means your life force. So when you really think about breath, this is one revelation I had. And some of this has to do with the fact of with both my parents, I was there when they passed. And so breath is the first thing you do in life, and it's the last thing you do in life. And I always thought that that was a profound way of thinking about why is breath important? It's like it is the life force. That's really the definition of life. And then if you think about it, everything that is living is breathing, And you think about, obviously, we're connected by breath because all of us are breathing. That all of humanity is breathing. And not only all of humanity, but all of wildlife is breathing. So you start thinking about that. I was reflecting on that. I was just like, wow, we're actually connected to everyone else on this earth. And breath is a common force that we have. And it's so powerful because oxygen is coming in. You're bringing in oxygen into your bloodstream. You're bringing oxygen into your organs and everything. It's so fundamental to life. And guess what? If breath isn't working or the circulation isn't working, you run into problems, and those end up being medical problems. So the idea of deep breathing, moving with breath, a lot of times in yoga, we find that some poses and things that we're doing, we're so focused on trying to get that form that people are actually holding your breath, trying to get it done. And then you look at the parallel between life when you're going through a stressful situation and you're not breathing, restricting your breathing. And so if we can bring that awareness, you mentioned body awareness, to say, okay, breathing is a way to talk to your brain. You can tell your brain can react to how you tell it to through the breath. And so you say, okay, I'm stressed out. And so your body is stressed out and your brain, everything's stressed out. But when you take a moment, you're actually communicating to your body that everything is all right. Slow it down. All of a sudden you can make better decision. You might be able to have better movement. So anyway, the breath to me is significantly important. And there's a lot to learn even within that practice. But a significant practice. And I can tell you, even my physical therapists, they will guide you, and you're not even doing yoga, but you're doing the exercises to make sure you do them with the breath. Inhale and exhale on the release, on the exertion. And so you realize in so many ways, breath is just so important. So that's my thought on that. And then the second part of your question, I'm sorry, Adam, you mentioned
about rest and recovery.
I never would have appreciated rest and recovery as much if I hadn't done marathon training. That's when I realized and understood what rest and recovery was all about. And honestly, I can say I'm still learning, but the fundamental thing I learned is as you're training, what the training protocol that I was on for a marathon was, you run X number of minutes on X number of days and everything that you're doing, and then you have a rest day. And so I was like, okay, yeah, good. A rest day is cool. But then you realize, no, even though it's called a rest day, you're actually building during that time. This is an important training day for you, even though it's a rest and recovery day. And that if you don't get that day, you're actually going off your training program. But I mean, unless I did marathon training, I never would have understood that concept. And so through my running coach and also through the physical therapist, I learned that. And so, and then I also learned that a lot of the training that you're doing, you're expecting the results to be the next day. You're like, I'm doing this. Okay, on Monday, I did this workout, and on Tuesday or Wednesday, I should be better. I should be faster. So much is cumulative. And so much is the training you're doing today is actually built to pay off maybe 2 to 3 weeks from now. Trust the process. That's part of one of those sayings as relates to training is like, trust the process. Not everything overnight. Not everything comes up even next week. It's building it over time. Trust the process. Take your time. Consistency is a part of that messaging, and just be consistent. Oh, I missed this day, or this didn't work. I was so busy that day I couldn't do it. Okay, you missed that one day, but that doesn't mean everything is, just keep going, So those types of lessons, recovery, understanding what the training is building you towards has been extremely, extremely helpful. And I try to convey that to people as well. But sometimes it's not necessarily conventional wisdom, so, and it goes against what people sometimes want, that immediate success.
I love that perspective, because that perspective you talked about on your rest day that you're actually building, it's almost the same principle when people don't realize that this is why you need to take time off away from work, or sometimes time off away, a gap. You need to develop that rest period, because you cannot push yourself, your body, your mind, just go, and doesn't appreciate that rest period. Because that rest period is part of the building.
Exactly. It really is. And, one of my friends, the way he ran, the way he trained, he had a system where he would run, and he ran the New York Marathon years ago, but he had a system where it was like, you run 5 minutes and then you walk a minute. And he did that through the entire marathon. There's a protocol that's like, I'm sure it's out there if your listeners are interested, if you Google it, but you can run that type of way. Whereas, we have this expectation that someone who's running is, heart beating through their chest for 4 hours straight, where it's like, no, recovery is a part of the whole thing,
Yeah.
And so, and I think that goes back to your point about body awareness. And once you start understanding body awareness, and then, as we reach these age milestones, Adam, sometimes we don't even need, our body awareness makes it very full and clear to us on a daily basis that it's time to sit down and take a break.
Yeah, it's going to flag you automatically.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. As you're talking about this, I can't help to reflect on, especially in today's world, the economics, the culture. Our culture, we live in a culture that keeps people constantly stimulated and distracted and under pressure for the most part. And when you're talking about the practice of yoga, the breathing and the awareness, it gives you a lot of lessons about slowing down, the breath, and noticing what's happening. From what you're a very observant person, Ashley, as you're sharing your story here, why do you think it's so difficult for people actually apply the principles that yoga actually is teaching? Because that actually applies to life. What's your own opinion, observation? Why people cannot slow down? Why can't people just breathe a little bit? Why can't people just notice what's going on and step back and actually recover? What's keeping people from doing that?
Yeah, I think it's really challenging. Like you said, the culture is on 24/7, breaking news, nonstop stimulation. And then there's an expectation of things. And we know that the media has a certain expectation of how one should be at a particular time, and how we should be on top of everything. And did you hear about that? Did you hear about this? That we need to be on top of all current events, and we need to be on top of all of everything. Did you hear about this new thing? Or have you heard this new thing? And if you haven't, did you watch this show? Or did you not? The FOMO is running rampant. And I think that really creates the environment of oh my gosh, if I'm sitting down somewhere, I should feel guilty. I'm feeling guilty for taking a moment of rest, or I'm feeling now I'm being lazy. I think a lot is American culture too, right? Because if you compare our culture to other cultures, that whole, it's not quite as pronounced in cultures that know about the whole month of August is a national vacation for everybody. You take off and there's no guilt around that. In fact, we take it with pride. And so I think our culture is just built around go, 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 more, more, more. And so it's hard to disassociate with that, even if you realize, oh, I need to take a moment. So I think that's why breath becomes such an important thing, and that yoga just overall can be such a powerful tool, because even if you just take it for a few, again, build momentum, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, is it meditation? Is it what can make you slow down for just even a small amount of time and start there? But I just think it's just built into our way of life so much that it's I understand it's really hard. But when you realize the power that lives in that rest time, the power that lives in the introspective time, I think of, there's so many voices and noise all around. You think about the noise and you're like, you can't hear anything with all that noise going on. And so bringing into a moment of quiet and all of a sudden being in tune with yourself, because when all those other things are going on out there, it makes it hard to be in tune with who you are and even your own self. And maybe you might ignore some signals that your body's trying to tell you about rest and about slowing down. And so finding those moments is to say, okay, just let me connect with myself for a minute. And what I try to do every day, and I make a practice of, I practice yoga every day, but I make it a part of my prayers. I make it a part of starting the day, intentionalizing the day, finding a moment of gratitude, finding a moment of, okay, where am I today? What do I have to be grateful for? And how am I going to approach today? And so just those moments and those couple questions can kind of reset your way. And so then when the quote unquote rat race does engage, because it won't be long after I get off of the mat and when the phone calls, everything starts kicking in, but you're starting from a position where you've been centered, and a position of, okay, I'm in tune with where I am. And then maybe you're in a better position to deal with all those external things then.
I want to follow up. You mentioned something that caught my attention, and then I'll make sure to check in with Ray, and then I'll take you to a different. I'll want to ask you something. I'm going to ask you something a little bit more personal.
Okay.
You talk about gratitude. In your opinion, what role does gratitude play in life, and also in your classes and personal practices?
Oh, yeah. So to me, it all starts with gratitude. Faith is a significant part of my life. So I'm a believer, and being grateful for breath, as simple as that. Yeah, gratitude plays the role into everything, because you realize so many challenges in life and maybe difficulties and misunderstandings a lot of times come in life when there's a certain expectation or a certain thing you believe you deserve, and you didn't get what you deserve, or I did this and I didn't get what I deserve. And you can carry that along, but then when you really look at the big picture and you say, wait a minute, I've been given many more things that I didn't deserve than things that I didn't get that I think I did deserve. And so if that makes sense. So to me, that puts that into perspective. Wait a minute. Yes, this didn't go my way. No, that didn't materialize the way that I thought it was going to materialize. But if I take a moment of quietness to really consider all of the things to be grateful for, and then you say, wow, you can start. Let's start with where we were before. I'm breathing fresh air. I'm breathing into my lungs. I'm breathing. And this is a recognition that I'm alive and that the creator that has given life and that gave breath it's in me right now. And in this moment in time, I'm here. So that type of gratitude is what I think is foundational to help you have great relationships with yourself, but also with other people. And so for me, gratitude is so important. And so I think it's great. That's one thing I love about it's great about yoga is you can incorporate gratitude in it. There's a ton of physical exercises you can do, which are amazing. And I love them all and I practice them all. But there's something about if you can take some time and if gratitude is a part of what that practice is, that physical practice. So you're really bringing a number of things together. I talk about strength, flexibility, mobility, and humility, because I think humility is also a part of gratitude. And I say, what type of exercise can you do where you can work on your humility, when you can strengthen your humility? There's not a lot of places, there's not a machine that you can go on that's working on your humility. So it takes intention. And so that's what I try to bring as it relates to yoga. So yeah, I tie humility and gratitude together quite a bit. And so to me, that's so important. And it's in difficult moments, sometimes we have to remind ourselves of the gratitude and all the wonderful things that we're experiencing in the midst of frustration, in the midst of difficulties. And so yeah, so important. And I'm glad you asked that question because, yeah, like I said, faith plays a huge role in my life. And so I use that as a way to keep myself in check, put it that way, when I'm working in all these different, whatever, entertainment, whatever the case may be, and just keeping it all in check.
It's a beautiful way of putting it. And as you're saying it, it's almost hard to separate humility and gratitude and humility. It's almost, you can't separate it.
Yeah, connected. They really are connected. Yeah. And so, yeah, I get a kick out of that idea. How can you work on your humility? Like, that's interesting. That's an interesting question.
Ray, I know you're thinking of a question here.
I'm just reflecting on, you have such powerful intentions. And I think that we need more people like you in the world to just continue to spread your message of positivity and momentum in life. And just thank you for who you are and what you do for the world, for the people that you're connected with. And I'm just grateful to get to meet you in this episode. People can take a lot away from your life experience and everything you're sharing. And just, it reminded me to just take a moment to breathe and look inwards.
Thank you so much, Ray. Very kind words. One thing I wanted to mention is I feel like much of my perspective also came from observing. And observing, I mentioned my mom and my dad as well. And so when it came to health, my dad was the cautionary tale and my mom was more the follow her lead. And so the cautionary tale was very challenging and difficult. My dad had whatever it is, you name it, diabetes, high blood pressure, hypertension, heart disease. He had multiple strokes, and I was with him. I was a young man during that time, but I would be with him going to the doctors, and I learned a lot under those circumstances, very difficult circumstances. And he was a smoker, and he just wouldn't quit smoking. I was like, Dad, you got to quit. I tried to be his coach. Okay, Dad, we're no more smoking, the doctor said. And so a lot of what I do now and what I've learned to do through the years was remembering, that cautionary tale of how lifestyle is has such a huge impact on our life. And so he passed at the age of 68 and my mom passed at the age of 92. And that's what I'm saying. I learned so much from both of their experiences. And I remember some people say, Ashley, why are you running? And then in my mind, I was like, I'm running away from diabetes. I'm running away from high blood pressure. I'm running away from taking medication every day. And I remember my dad, once he completed his open heart surgery, then he had a diet that he had to adhere to. I was like, Dad, here's your diet. I had the sheet of paper, and he wasn't happy about what the diet looked like. I was like, Dad, you got to do this. And he's like, ah. And so I remember for some reason, I just had an awareness. I was like, wow, maybe I should just go ahead on this diet or something like it before someone enforces that diet onto me. You know what I mean? I almost had this feeling of, I guess it was preventative maybe, but it was just the mindset of, it's so hard when somebody imposes something on you, particularly my dad as an adult, a whole history of how he used to eat and all that. All of a sudden, one day, here's your new diet. And of course, there's rejection to it. But something about that experience made me look at it as, just, you know what, give me that diet now so I don't have to deal with what he dealt with to get to that point. So I really, even though I probably can't completely grasp it, I feel that my experience with him is still a significant influence in how I approach things and how I'm approaching this space of health and wellness, because I've seen it all the way down to the ground. You know what I mean? I've seen it all the way, and it can be very rough. It can be rough. And I also think there's cultural aspects to that. Back to yoga for people who don't think yoga is for them. Because my dad, I'm sure he would definitely never think that yoga was for him. You know what I mean? But man, there's so many people who could benefit. So if I can reach them and be a gateway into something that could be helpful, is amazing.
Ashley, I'm going to ask, I know you from this era, but for other people who's listening, I'm sure they'll be interested, how did you get involved? Because you serve on the board as well, of board of directors of Alzheimer's Association.
Yes.
Can you share what personally brought you to the cause, and what was there particular experiences that made the advocacy meaningful to you?
Yes, for sure. For sure. So what happened is, around that time that I mentioned, around the pandemic, as my mom was aging, we realized something was going on with her. The way I described it was to friends, and this is before I was involved with the Alzheimer's Association. I was like, you know how sometimes you're trying to water plants outside, but the ground is dry, that when you pour the water on the soil, it just sits on top of the soil. It doesn't sink in. And I think we recognized that there were things that weren't sinking in as related to my mom. And as time went on, we found out that she was diagnosed with dementia. She also had Parkinson's. And so that was a tough thing. I'm very close with my mom. We share an incredible bond. And so that was a tough time. She was in North Carolina with my sisters, and I live out here in California. And so as that started to progress, it was very challenging because I'm way out here and I can't be there. And I would visit and I would be the long distance sibling caregiver and do the best I could, but it was tough. And so that's when I was like, if I could run the marathon for the Alzheimer's Association, I can put some of my energy towards honoring my mom and what she was going through, helping other people, because man, it's so tough for the whole family when you have someone who's struggling with the disease. And it's overwhelming. And I learned that firsthand. It's completely overwhelming, between trying to figure out caregiving and learning about the disease and what's going on and dealing with your own feelings about that. And so anyway, I reached out to the Alzheimer's Association and asked if I could represent them in the LA Marathon. And they were so amazing. Not only, hey, yeah, that's great if you would represent us in the LA Marathon, but Ashley, tell me what's going on with your mom. And I was like, let me tell you. And they were like, you don't know, all these different programs are available to people like you and your family. And it was such like a relief to even just that alone, someone listening and saying, hey, I understand you're going through a rough time, and we have resources for people like you. And so that went a long way. And so the more I got involved with the Alzheimer's Association, I ran the marathon, but then other things came up, other events that I learned about their outreach. I learned about the research that they did, and then just the community of people, the volunteers, the staff. And I was just like, you know what, guys, you guys are doing such great thing. Anything you need from me, just let me, how can I be helpful? And so I was just moved to be as helpful as possible. And then that relationship just grew. And then I met you not long after that, Adam, at the down in San Diego at the big summit that they have for the whole Alzheimer's Association, the whole national organization. And that's where I met Adam. And that's where I was at that stage. How can I be helpful? Let me learn as much as I can, and how can I be helpful? And that ultimately led to joining the California Southland board. And my thing is just anything I can do to be helpful. And so a lot of that is fundraising. I'm fundraising now for the marathon. And I'm looking, and I continue to donate as well through AC Beach Yoga. So I use AC Beach Yoga as a fundraiser where I take a whole season, and any money that comes in gets donated to the Alzheimer's Association. And so and then I continue to look for new ways. How can I engage, and how can I continue to raise funds and bring awareness? Let everybody know there's a 24/7 800 number that you can call if you are a caregiver or whatever, and you're looking for some type of direction. Alzheimer's Association provides 800 number 24/7 and trained people who can help you through. So it's just like an organization that's doing that is like, man, whatever I can do to help. And if I can honor my mom, who's now passed, my aunt also passed just this past last year. She passed with Alzheimer's as well. So I honor both my aunt Carmelita and my mom June, and with every step and everything that I'm doing. And then I realize it's so great when people donate. They say, Ashley, I'm donating. My dad had it. Ashley, I'm donating. My mom had it. And so whenever they do that, I reply back. I said, I'm running for your dad. I'm running for your mom. And so I like to make it known that their specific instance, I'm acknowledging that, seeing, I know, understand what they've gone through and maybe what they're going through right now. And that part of my effort is for that, to support your family as well as my family. So we're on this together. And so that's so important to me.
You are one of the most heavy mission-oriented person I've known from the organization. And I think that's really what caused us to be connected in a deeper sense. You're one of my closer friends in that area.
I appreciate that. Yes, Adam.
I'm curious, because of your being exposed in this work now, from your opinion, what do people misunderstand about the broader impact of Alzheimer's disease?
I think one part of it is it's one of those diseases that you kind of want to keep in secret. One of those things you don't want to kind of deal with or talk about. It's difficult. It's tough. And so that's one of the areas, and it is tough. That's not a misconception. It is tough. I guess the main thing that I try to advocate for is hope. Because if that's what it's all about, hope. So what does hope look like when you're dealing with a situation that feels hopeless? And so for me, that means, okay, if we can understand how health intervention, healthy lifestyle, those things can have a positive impact in preventing or staving off cognitive decline. That's hope, that we have something in our control that we can do to help minimize this disease and all of the impact that's around it. Hope in the sense of, okay, someone in your family is dealing with it and you're trying to be supportive. Hope that there are other people who can be helpful and guide you. One thing I like to focus on too, mainly because everything that my sisters went through, and some friends too, but my sisters in particular, because it's close to me, is just the day-to-day caregiver experience, how hard that is. You are on 24/7. And I just never want the caregivers to be forgotten, that their labor of love, their sacrifice, and guess what? We don't have training. As you're a caregiver, we don't have, I realize, man, there are people who go to school and they learn and train and work to take care of people for years before they do it. And here, many caregivers and many family members are just thrust into it on one day. All of a sudden, here you are. This is your new reality. And so trying to bring hope to those people as well. And full circle, one of the things that connected my mom and I so much was music. And she and I both love music. She played piano and I play piano, and she used to play for me. And so it was just amazing shared connection. And of course, there's research and everything that shows how important a role music can play in current Alzheimer's patients and helping manage anxiety and things like that. And many times music they remember the lyrics and the songs in such an amazing way. And my mom played the piano into her 90s. And so that's the power, back again, full circle, the power of music. And so to me, music also then brings hope as well. So that's what I guess the misconception is, that it's hopeless. And I know it's difficult and it's challenging. I'm not taking that away from it and definitely honoring that. But let us find a way to bring hope to the situation.
You bring that so beautifully, Ashley. And I think it's more, people need to hear what you just mentioned. And I'm glad you shared that. You created a unique way of contributing into this movement. But I'm curious, as an advice to listeners, because yes, our listeners are the 55 and up, but sometimes their family members are listening to this too. What would you like listeners to understand about getting involved with an Alzheimer's association, to that type of involvement? Because you've done it. You're connecting you mentioned earlier about a whole season of your yoga practice goes to them. You run the association. There's a lot of those. And you really built a lot of momentum contributing in that cause. What would you like our listeners to understand about getting involved to serve a cause like Alzheimer's Association?
Sure. Yeah, I think it's great because a lot of times I hear people, just general people, like, boy, I would love to volunteer and help other people. They say, I wish I could find the right thing to volunteer that would fit with my life or what would fit with my interests and things like that. And what I love about the Alzheimer's Association is, as a volunteer, there's this platform called Do What You Love to End Alzheimer's. And so the whole point of it is using things that you're already doing, things that you enjoy doing, and using that as a platform to bring awareness about Alzheimer's and to raise funds and to get involved. And so if you have a passion, you can bring that, and the Alzheimer's Association will help you as a volunteer bring that to life and bring the purpose of Alzheimer's to you, the mission, and give you the opportunity and the resources to pull something like that together. So I love that aspect of the Alzheimer's Association, this Do What You Love, because what I think about whenever something becomes a job, or it feels like a burden, then the intention, it doesn't work as well. But if it's something you already love and that you love to do, then you're doing it from a position of love. You're doing it from a position of enthusiasm and what can I do and what can I bring? And so I really love that the Do What You Love to End Alzheimer's is as a great way for somebody to come in. However, and again, like we said, start small. Just like everything else, you don't have to run the marathon or whatever. It can be anything. It could be your chess club or whatever thing you got, mahjong, whatever. It could be whatever you love to do. And there's a way to channel that and to use that to help the cause. And so I encourage you to check it out. You can reach out to Adam or I or alz.org as well on the website. But so many ways to get involved and to use what you're already doing to bring hope and to bring that type of healing to people.
Now, you're so generous, Ashley, to be honest with you. As I'm listening to your life story, I'm discovering a lot of new things. Ray mentioned a lot about your kindness and everything, and I've known that about you too. And really, before we move on to some of our questions, really want to acknowledge that and thank you really for just being you. You've always been that consistent person that is just generous and just kind, and we need
Well,
more of you. Let's put it that way.
thank you. Thank you. I appreciate those kind words and definitely feel the same way about you as well. And just, yeah, we have power. People, we have power. Sometimes it's hard to see it, but we do. And if we can use that to help other people, man, what better gift is there than that? And so I try to give as much that I can and be creative about how I get involved with things to be helpful. But it's its own reward too. It's rewarding. I receive more than I give, I feel.
It's a beautiful way of expressing gratitude. Ashley, I'm looking at our time. We're really enjoying ourselves here. And I want to be respectful of this. So there's always a portion of our podcast where I ask our guests, and we've tried this recently and our guests have enjoyed it. So we kept this as part of our format. There's a part of our podcast portion where we do rapid fire questions.
Okay.
We do rapid fire questions. But before that, I want to make sure I check in with Ray. Questions you have in mind, Ray, as you're developing thoughts here. I know you have some reflection.
Journey with the Alzheimer's Association is very inspiring and it's very personal. So thank you just for being so open to sharing that and spreading your message about hope. And we're dedicated to the same cause. So
all right. Thank you as well. Thank you for your help and all you do.
So Ashley, in this portion, we ask rapid fire questions.
Okay.
And you can answer it one word, sentence, your thought, sometimes no explanation. Our goal is to just get some real quality, good answers in a short amount of time. Squeeze it as much as possible because we can talk more. We have a lot of things we can discuss about.
For sure.
And we can see a part 2 or something.
Yes, for sure.
But for this rapid fire, the first question I want you to fill in the blank. Movement is
medicine.
I love it. And I'll start with questions. Running or yoga?
No.
Yeah, I'm the hybrid.
Roga. There's a part of both of them that are both moving meditations. So hard to separate those two for me.
So Roga would be a good.
Roga. Yeah, exactly.
Sunrise practice or sunset practice?
Sunrise.
Okay. Music during yoga or natural sound?
I'm a music during yoga person. Some of the purists might argue with me, but music is just part of who I am.
Yeah. One song that immediately changes your energy?
Recently, it's been Lean On Me.
Oh. Okay.
But also Prince, Purple Rain. Also, there's a song by this artist Ray that I really like. She's got a song called Joy. She's got a lot of songs that lift my energy, but her album lifts my energy. How about that? Yeah.
I love it. I love that. We're going to have to listen to the album.
Yes.
One movement most people should practice more often?
I'm going to say twist, gentle spinal twist, spinal twist. Yeah, just not too much, but moving your spine is so important. And getting just a little bit of rotation and that spinal twist, I think is very beneficial.
Most misunderstood part of yoga?
I think a lot of people think it's a mystical religion.
I think there's truth to that. And
yeah.
Some people will say it's a woohoo, but the reality there's science in yoga.
Yes. I think that it's a mystical religion thing. And there's more to it than that, and it's life lessons are in there.
Yeah, until they attend big man yoga.
Exactly.
It's not gonna be religion.
No, not at all. Big man yoga is far from that.
One excuse people should stop making about movement:
I'm not flexible enough.
Okay. Since you mentioned flexible, strength or flexibility?
I say flexibility.
Okay. One thing marathon running taught you?
Slow and steady wins the race. Take it slow. It's okay to take it slow.
Yeah. And one thing yoga taught you.
That, let's see, one thing. I would just say your body is a gift, and your body is built to restore itself. It's a whole system created to, this is not one word, but it's what really is near and dear to me about yoga is you realize your body is even created to make itself healthy. You all the things are here to make sure that everything works properly. And but again, movement is medicine, and these movements and breath and poses that have been practiced for thousands of years are tied into that, to the function of what your body, and it can just help you lead a healthy life.
Mm-hmm. Since you talked about yoga, one form of movement you would still like to try?
I'm interested in Tai Chi and Qigong. I'm interested in those, and if I find time one of these years, maybe I would do some training in those. I've been looking at some training in those areas, but yeah, again, and that's the other thing about the human body. There's so much to learn, and even yoga, I'm just learning. I make it an ongoing process of learning more, and we learn through living, and it's all fascinating, and there's so much to learn. I remember when I had the figure that our bodies have 37 trillion cells inside. 37 trillion cells. Can you imagine that?
Yeah.
That number is so crazy, and they're all alive, and it's all happening. And man, so much to learn. So much to learn, and to learn about ourselves and our bodies.
I have three more.
Okay.
One reason people should support Alzheimer's advocacy.
Because no matter what, there's someone, either you or someone you know, that has been impacted by that disease. That let's all come together and do what we can to give hope, and to do all we can to help end Alzheimer's disease.
One thing your future self will thank you for.
I think training for this marathon, I think my body's going to thank me for that. I'm doing some things, training for this one in particular, and I think my future self will be happy about that.
I love this. And then last question on this rapid fire area portion. What does living better longer mean to you?
Living better longer means not just surviving, but living a fruitful, abundant life, continuing to live a fruitful, abundant life, not just surviving, and having an amazing quality of life, and being able to appreciate all the years.
Love that. Ashley, there's a lot of things we can talk about. So
we can keep going for sure. We might need a part two.
Yes, we do. I'm gonna ask Ray to share a little bit about what's going on in the PrimeSpan world, and she's gonna pass that on to you. What's going on in your world in AC Beach Yoga? I'm sure there's a lot more for you to share about that. So Ray, take it away from here for now.
Thank you, Ashley, so much for your time and generosity, and sharing your life story with everyone too. There's so much to take away. But thank you, everyone, for listening in on this episode. If you've enjoyed this conversation and want to stay connected, please follow us on our social media on all platforms and see what we're building. And also join us on our PrimeSpan community Facebook group. If you're ready to see how PrimeSpan can fit into your life, getting started is very easy. We offer two options: our core membership for full access to our library, community, and tools, or our premium build coaching membership, which adds a dedicated longevity coach to help tailor your movement, nutrition, and habits to your specific goals. Regardless of which path you might choose, there's no long-term contracts and you can cancel them at any time. You aren't just getting a subscription, you're getting a system designed for adults 55 plus that stops the fragmented advice and puts everything you need in one place. Join us as a member by heading to PrimeSpan.life. We're also opening our doors for professionals who want to help us lead the way and spread our mission at PrimeSpan. If that's something you're interested in, please check out our Build PrimeSpan certification. And we're going to be launching that very soon. Lastly, I want to invite everyone to our free live webinar we've been hosting at the end of every month. This month in July, it's going to be on Saturday, July 25th and Sunday, July 26th, where we'll be tackling the hidden effects of stress, anxiety, and burnout. You can visit our site to register, and I hope to see you there. Ashley, do you want to share with us, with our listeners, how they can find you?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Would love to see you. Come check me out. My handle on Instagram is it's also my handle on YouTube. So on YouTube, that's where you can find beach yoga classes. I actually film them on the beach, and they're up on YouTube that you can access at any time. So I always told my people, this was earlier this year, if it's freezing cold wherever you are and you feel like you need a little bit of a beach vibe, just come hang out on the beach with me. Bring your headphones and listen to the sounds of the ocean and enjoy a yoga class beachside. So at AC on YouTube and on Instagram, on TikTok and Facebook as well. But yeah, definitely come check it out.
One of these days, we're gonna have to go to Ashley's yoga classes and really get into it.
You come to the beach there and just you got the sand between your toes. And the other good thing is it is challenging to balance sometimes on the sand, but that's also part of the whole thing, right? Part of the challenge. And like I said, it's not a contest of who's doing the best pose and how it looks and things like that. It's not about that at all. So come and hang out and have fun.
Absolutely. I'm gonna bring my son when I go to your yoga class.
Okay,
Ashley.
good. Yeah. He's going to be the most flexible of all and fearless, probably.
Yeah, correct.
Yeah.
Train him young.
Yes, exactly.
I do think we have some part 2 in this conversation because there's other things and there's a lot more things we can talk about. But in just this amount of time, we've covered a lot. There's a lot that I hope our listeners have taken from this conversation. And really, if today's conversation is resonating with any of our listeners, if you're listening to this, I hope you take 5 minutes today to ask yourself, really, what form of movement have I been avoiding because I believe I am not ready? And I'm hoping that what Ashley shared during this podcast encourage you to start somewhere. Ashley, thank you for your time, your generosity. This is such a pleasure. I get to know you more because of this podcast. You shared a lot of great things here. I'm so excited to meet you in the next couple of meetings that we have. But thank you for being here. Thank you for joining us at PrimeSpan Podcast.
You're very welcome. And I thank you. Thank you for your graciousness for hosting such a great platform to help people. So I'm all about that. So thank you for that.
Thank you. And Ray, of course, thank you for always being there as a co-pilot. So to our listeners,
Ray, give it up for Ray.
Absolutely. To all of our listeners, thank you for being here. Until next time.
Thank you for spending time with us. If today's conversation gave you clarity or steadiness, take that with you. We release new episodes weekly. Follow the PrimeSpan Podcast on Apple Podcasts so you don't miss what's next. Until next time, take care of yourself and keep living well.